The Howling, 1981 werewolf horror film.
Somewhere in this city, in this human jungle, it begins. Somewhere in these woods, in this primal, sensuous, secret place, lies an experience too terrifying for words. The Howling.
Greetings, fiends. It's your old pal Horror Mike, and today we're uncovering the naked and hairy truth behind The Howling, the 1981 werewolf horror film directed by Joe Dante and starring Dee Wallace, Patrick Macnee, Dennis Dugan, Belinda Balaski, and the enchanting Elizabeth Brooks. The Howling plot. After a bizarre and near-deadly encounter with a serial killer, a traumatized television newswoman is sent to a remote mountain resort whose residents may not be what they seem. The 1980s, a very hairy decade. The Howling was released during an early to late 1980s cycle of werewolf horror movies. These included An American Werewolf in London from 1981, The Wolfen, also from 1981, Teen Wolf from 1985, Teen Wolf 2 from 1987, The Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf from 1985, Howling 3, The Marsupials from 1987, Full Moon High, 1981, The Company of Wolves, 1984, and Silver Bullet from 1985. Rob Bottin effects maestro. Rick Baker was originally supposed to do the special effects for The Howling, but he left to do An American Werewolf in London, leaving the effects job for this movie in the hands of his assistant, Rob Bottin. Both this movie and American Werewolf in London were released the same year, and both received praise for their makeup work. Rob Bottin's most celebrated effect was the on-screen transformation of Eddie the Mangler Quist, which involved air bladders under latex facial applications to give the illusion of transformation. Grueling special makeup effects work on The Howling. Joe Dante said makeup artist Rob Bottin was a perfectionist. He spent the entire first day of the memorable transformation of actor Robert Picardo putting makeup on him, to the point where they couldn't actually film anything because they had to send the crew home and avoid overtime. It also meant Picardo had to stay in his werewolf makeup overnight, so Dante could finally film the scene the next morning. Elizabeth Brooks is howling mad and buck naked. Elizabeth Brooks, who played Marcia Quist and appeared nude in one key scene, was always very vocal in her objections to scenes that required full frontal nudity. She said in an interview with Us Magazine after The Howling was released that, quote, "In the past, I've always refused to do nude magazine work because I believe in the Bible and have morals," unquote. She added that in the article entitled Elizabeth Brooks is Howling Mad, that, quote, "I was signed to do the movie on my acting ability alone. I was told the nudity would be smoke-screened by a bonfire and that you wouldn't be able to see anything," unquote. She said she had no issue being totally nude in front of the crew while filming that scene, but she had no idea they would show as much of her nudity as they did in the film. Before she saw the completed movie, Playboy published images of the nude footage without Elizabeth's approval in the magazine's annual Sex in the Cinema retrospect. With no heat waves or smoke, it showed her disrobing near the embers of a very small blaze and clearly revealed her breasts and pubic hair. This ended up being her only nude scene in a movie during her career. Banned in Britain. The movie loop playing during the adult shop scene was created just for The Howling. The entire loop consisted of 2 sequences, one with a woman being attacked on the top of a car by 3 men, and one with a nude, gagged woman on a bed, the sequence which is shown in The Howling. These scenes were to be included in their entirety as part of a DVD release, but were banned by the British Board of Film Classification, the BBFC, because of their eroticization of assault. Hairy Little Gremlins. Because of their work in The Howling, Joe Dante and Michael Fennell got the opportunity to make Gremlins in 1984 for Steven Spielberg. In Gremlins, there is a reference to The Howling with the smiley face image on a refrigerator door. In The Howling, Eddie Quist leaves yellow smiley face stickers as his calling card in several places throughout the movie. Also, James McCrell's character as news reporter Lou Landers appears in both The Howling and Gremlins, which suggests that both movies share the same universe. UFOs and werewolves and Spielberg, oh my. A subplot in the film is a series of incidents with mutilated cows. One of the characters blames UFOs for the incidents. These scenes seem to be inspired by several real-life incidents of cattle mutilation during the 1970s, primarily in Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska. A few news reports connected the incidents with UFO sightings in Kansas and Nebraska at the time. In one scene, Earl Kenton, who is played by John Carradine, mentions UFOs and cattle mutilation. Around the time he wrote the screenplay for The Howling, writer John Sayles was also working on a screenplay for Steven Spielberg known as Night Skies, which involved UFOs and cattle mutilations. However, the project was dropped when Spielberg chose to make E.T. the Extraterrestrial instead. It's also interesting to note that John Carradine played the vampire Count Dracula in The House of Frankenstein 1944, directed by Earl C. Kenton, which is the name of his character in The Howling. Earl Kenton most notably directed the early horror classic Island of Lost Souls in 1932. Walter, Walter.
Sun worshippers, moon worshippers, Satanists. The Manson people used to hang around here and shoplift. Bunch of deadbeats.
Dick Miller's memorable character in The Howling as the occult bookshop owner is named Walter Paisley, as was his character's name in Roger Corman's horror comedy classic A Bucket of Blood from 1959. You can also see Roger Corman in The Howling as the man waiting in front of the telephone booth when Dee Wallace is talking to Eddie the Mangler. Dick Miller has said that with his own movies, The Howling is his favorite. American Werewolf in London versus The Howling. There is a debate in the film community as to which werewolf effects are better, The Howling or An American Werewolf in London. While most critics lean towards American Werewolf in London, both movie effects were heralded as revolutionary and highly influential in the world of film. What say you, viewers? American Werewolf or The Howling for special makeup effects? David Allen's stop-motion animation. Stop-motion animation and puppetry by David Allen was intended to give the werewolves an even more non-human look. The stop-motion animation of the film was handled entirely by effects genius David Allen. Here is some unused footage of the animated werewolves for The Howling. Written by John Piranha Sayles. Director Joe Dante and screenwriter John Sayles had previously collaborated about 3 years before The Howling on Piranha from 1978. Sayles also had a role in the director's later movie Macnee from 1993. Sayles also wrote the memorable screenplay to Alligator in 1980. In The Howling, Sayles has a brief role as the coroner. Horror Mike's old stomping grounds. The Other Side bookstore seen in The Howling is actually the old Cherokee bookshop that your old pal Horror Mike used to frequent in his teen years. Cherokee, along with Larry Edmonds, were the prime places in La La Land to find rare movie posters, magazines, books, and comics. In one scene in the store, a patron played by none other than Forrest J. Ackerman is seen carrying a few issues of his beloved Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. Those were the days, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video about The Howling. As always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.